Story about Ben K. Who's here just loves Ben K? You're just like, love Ben so much. He's so amazing, okay? I'm with you. I feel this. Now let me tell you. The first semester of Thesis of Rhetoric class, I was not there. I was like, Ben, just leave me alone, Ben. Every time we had class, Ben would come in my class and he'd be like, Miss Layla, Miss. And then, you know what? He would tell me every single problem with his thesis, every single counter argument. Miss, I can't do this thesis anymore because of this and this and this. And I would be like, that's exactly why you need to do this one. And he'd be like, but Miss, here's a counter argument. And I'm like, okay, now you have to find the answer to it. But Miss, I can't. And then he would go and he would do more research. And his thesis topic switched. Like it went some direction, it went to the left a little bit, then it went to the right a little bit, and he finally settled on what he calls a very middle ground. But the thing about Ben's thesis is that before he practiced his thesis, before he wrote his script, he had told me his thesis like 5 times, just coming to me and being like, Miss, here's my proof, and here's what it's going to be, and here are the 3 claims within the proof, and here's the evidences I'm going to do, and probably 5 times, maybe 6 times, maybe 10 times, again and again and again. And he knows so much about this issue and so much about this topic. And I know that this is going to be a really good conversation, although unfortunately we panelists are not as well educated about AI. In fact, nobody here is as educated about AI as Ben is. But I do hope that, especially you guys you Gen Zers, you to ask some really good questions, okay? Because Miss Layla, it goes above my head. It goes above my head. Okay, so that's my story about Ben. It took me a semester before I was like, oh my goodness, this person is really smart. And I think it's just, I just don't understand. I think that's the problem. So that's my story about Ben. Ben's thesis, title, Flawed AI is the Future. Welcome, Ben.
First and foremost, I would like to thank everyone for coming here and listening to my thesis. Mr. Hans for being my advisor for these past few months, and Ms. Laila for answering my questions and being my advisor as well. I would like to also thank the panelists, Ms. Denise and Ms. Bethany, and we hope to have an interesting conversation after this. Thank you for coming. Imagine a future world where AI does everything for us, from self-driving cars, judges in court, even doctors, everything will be AI. 5 years ago, this would have been surprising for most of you, revolutionary even. But today, it's just what we expect of AI. But what if I told you that AI can do more than just all that? That the AI doctors will be able to comfort us with love, sensitivity, and with care. The judges will be able to rule without bias and with impeccable accuracy. Surely, it's the future ahead of us, a future for mankind, and a paradise for all of us. But sometimes, dreams are just dreams, unable to be actualized, or even worse, nightmares. Other than the eternal question on whether AI will be a force of good for mankind, it begs another question. Could such wide-reaching, capable, and fair AI even exist in the first place? Although the future cannot be predicted, and it's full of mysteries, we could infer from the current state of AI. The public should be skeptical of AI since it has weaknesses and limited potential. But society should continue to invest in AI, especially in certain fields, since it has some valuable potential and capabilities. In the 1950s, the basic foundation and proof of concept of AI was made. Then many raced to develop AIs, Notably, the Japanese and the United States government, who spent millions of dollars trying to develop AI. However, the Japanese were disappointed that their ambitious goals were not met. AI fell from the limelight afterwards. But in the shadow, AI continued to grow. A well-noted example would be IBM Deep Blue, a chess AI, who managed to defeat the reigning champion of chess, Garry Kasparov. This was unheard of back then. Then, nowadays, even modern games such as Dota, Go, everything else is not far off reach for AI to defeat. Nowadays, AI is basically everywhere as AI continued to grow as computers and the internet was born. AI is everywhere, even in things you would not expect, such as in criminal justice. For example, Compass, an AI used in the criminal justice system to do pretrial assessment in the United States for some states, namely New York, Wisconsin, and California. It predicts how likely is a person to commit a crime within 3 years, thus whether the person should be released or should be detained before facing trial. Other than that, AI also have been well known for taking over jobs with its scope and capabilities being a point of contention. Note that this thesis does not talk about the moral, economical, sociological impact of AI taking over jobs. Rather, it merely determines and talks about how capable AI is. Some terms that need to be defined are artificial intelligence, which I define to simply be computer systems that can do tasks that typically require human intelligence. Then, about predictive AIs are AIs that are used to predict events in the future, risks, and many more. And finally, machine learning. Machine learning basically is the way that AIs can learn to do their jobs and tasks without explicit human coding. So it's the way that AI eat the data and study it. Regarding AI, some focus on the positive sides of AI and the good development, such as ChatGPT. It has done things unheard of, and you guys may know about it because you probably all use it to complete assignments at school. But there are also the bad sides about AI that we could see. For example, AI, a famous Twitter bot that become racist in a day after interacting with people. So we could see that AI could have flaws in itself, and therefore, some people think that AI is like a plant with a disease from the root of the plant, which is untreatable. Afterwards, we could see the importance of AI right now because AI has been used in important and critical positions, such as loan assessment and, as I've stated before, in pre-trial assessment. It is already important since the livelihoods, the economical, and the traumas that the people experience while pre-trial is on the line. And what we do about AI right now can shape the future of AI to the whole world, including in Indonesia. So, what people think about AI right now can affect what AI do to us in the future. So, public opinion, policies, investments towards AI is critical in shaping the future of society as a whole and us as a humankind. Solutions were already proposed regarding this issue. For example, the EU released the Artificial Intelligence Act, which sought to illegalize the usage of private data and also demands transparency, accountability, and fairness in AIs. Some people even call for an outright predictive AI ban. Also, people's optimism and skepticism regarding the AIs in the labor market determines whether AI is worth the investment and hope it gets. First of all, people should be skeptical of predictive AIs. Predictive AIs use machine learning to learn from the data it gets. However, the quality of the data determines how good and accurate and fair the AI is. However, we can see around us, humans are sinners. We have biases, we discriminate, and Therefore, the data we collect are not good enough and not perfect for AIs. The biases here can come implicitly. For example, if the police do not search a group of people as often, then they do not have criminal records. Afterwards, the AI will determine the person to be clean and safe since they do not have the previous criminal record since they were not searched as often before. This chain reaction can lead to people being detained pre-trial or not based on their skin color, which is unfair. So even if previous crime is a good factor to determine recidivism, it does not necessarily fit in for different groups and different types of people. So it can have biases and intricacies. Then AI is inherently unexplainable. First of all, AI is developed by private companies who can legally keep these AIs as a trade secret, legally hidden from the public view. Then, even worse, even the developers themselves, the smart programmers, cannot explain the AIs themselves. The AIs are simply too complex for humans to understand. Therefore, the fate of human lives could be held on something with an explainability like a pet. Sure, we can guess why the dog does certain things, does it bark, and certain things, but we never know exactly how, why, and when. So the current state of AI is like a baker who used different kinds of ingredients for their cake. However, the ingredients are flawed at best. There are allergens, there are also expired ingredients. For most of us, what we feel is just slight sickness. It's not that bad. But for a minority of people, they get very, very sick. This is compounded by the fact that the bakers do not need to reveal the baking process and sometimes outright the ingredients they use to cook the cake. This is such a huge problem, especially since AI's ingredients is the data it gets, and the data is expired and is flawed. Like an apple will not fall far from a tree, AI will not suddenly be free from the biases that it has, that humans have. Finally, AI's recorded accuracy is mediocre, and for something like Compass, some suggest that it is discriminatory. For example, ProPublica released a report that suggests that the black population are more likely to be unnecessarily detained pre-trial. They're not dangerous, yet they're detained. Well, on the contrary, the white population are calculated to be more likely to be falsely released. They're considered to be safe by the AI, but yet do crimes when they were released. Furthermore, Compass has a 2 out of 3 accuracy, which is abysmal, especially when the safety of society is on the line and the livelihoods of people unnecessarily detained, economical damage, traumas are on the line as well. Even random surveyors on the internet, people like us, manage a similar accuracy at 62%. This shows that AI, even as critical, as well-known as Compass, is not even far better than random surveyors on the internet, which is not always trustworthy. Furthermore, next we're going to go to the limitations of AI to take over the job market. Studies vary regarding the percentage of jobs and tasks that could be replaceable by AIs. But some things suggest less than half, while another suggests less than a tenth, of course, with different assumptions and variables. All of them basically conclude that not all jobs will be replaceable. And, for example, for physical jobs, physical tasks like manual labor and etc., repetitive tasks are 3 times more technically feasible than non-repetitive tasks. This shows that the kryptonite of AI, especially the one that learns using machine learning, is unexpected situations found in the non-repetitive tasks. Furthermore, AIs are softwares, so to do physical tasks, they will require robotics and other things, which is not always ideal. Then, the successes of AIs that we are given is more likely than not to be overrated. First of all, the accuracy increase compared to the old system may not even be proven in the first place, since an apple to comparison with the old systems is rarely ever done in the first place. Then the training data that the AI learns from machine learning is old and is likely to not reflect the current conditions. Furthermore, even if it has higher accuracy compared to regular predictions, AI alone does not provide explicit solutions to what to do. Knowing that someone will suffer a heart attack like 5 years or 10 years to come does not mean that we know what to do with the person. Should we operate them now? Put them in the hospital? Therefore, AI on its own does not necessarily improve the results and the healthcare a patient gets. And the last point is that AI is too demanding and costly. For it takes months to develop specific predictive AIs, and it's very, very costly, especially for small companies. Even offshore AIs are still costly, especially for small businesses. This limits the AI's economic viability, especially for smaller companies who need pennies to the dollar for everything they have. Therefore, AI's capabilities are limited in its job market. However, fear not, AI still has a bright future. New technologies exist and robotics continue to improve from decades and decades ago. Efficiency can increase by technological ways to focus on certain parts of the problem and ignoring the rest, which increase the AI's accuracy and efficiency. Next, the new technology and robots are very important for AI's scope in the world, since robotics are the bridge between the software and the physical world, and improvements in robotics translate to improvements in AIs. Next, as data quality improves, AI will improve along with it. First of all, data can improve through new and creative ways to collect data, such as digital trackers in the internet. They track your information accurately and basically everywhere you go. There are also other ways that economists for loan banking have found creative solutions to find data. Adding factors can improve AI significantly. For example, adding the author's gender in an AI that predicts book reviews is found to improve its accuracy so much and reduce its error to basically near zero. Therefore, in the future, if we manage to collect better data, better factors, we could improve AI significantly. AI successes also show its potential. AI has done things thought to be impossible for us 5 years, 10 years ago. For example, ChatGPT. Who would have thought that computer systems would be able to write music, code, and even write essays that manage to get passing grades? It's all futuristic and basically black magic 10 years, 20 years ago. It is reasonable, therefore, that AI can exceed our current and future expectations, since it has exceeded expectations of us in the past. Some people are not convinced, and they refute by arguing that AI will never surpass humans in judgment and prediction. AI is not transparent and is flawed after all, as I have outlined. However, even if AI is imperfect, we should not discount it, since it can improve significantly. There are many technological ways to improve, ways to make the development process more transparent, more open to the public. There are also ways to modify the data to make it less biased. There are ways to improve AI, to make it better than the current systems. Also, remember, the current systems are not perfect, so AI does not to be perfect in the first place. It just needs to be better. Then, others will also argue that my stance of pessimism for the current AIs and its weaknesses could reduce investment for the important and useful AIs in the future. I agree with this. AI needs investment. Stopping its development right now is a loss of such important technology. However, the status quo, or even worse, a future filled with flawed AI, discriminating everyone along the way, is too much of a price to pay. Compass is already critical and important and well known, yet it has terrible statistics and is still not open to the public. Imagine such AIs determining life and death, and even more things in the future. It's too much risk for us to handle. Therefore, we should regulate it now while we can and save lives in the future. Is asking for transparency too much to ask? Next, we also go towards the refutation that it will reduce the investment outright. This is why I combine hope and also skepticism with AI to the same part of the thesis. We need both of them to progress society towards the future, which this thesis has explicitly done. We have started with the flaws in predictive AIs. It's development data flaws, its lack of transparency and explainability, and its disappointing statistics. Then we have moved towards the failures of AI in replacing jobs in the job market and its limited capabilities to be as wide-reaching as we think it is. And finally, we ended on the high note of a message of hope for the future AIs and its potential improvements. Now, it all begs a question. What if we do nothing? What if we leave AI as it is and stop developing it even further? Well, we'll be left with a disappointing, mediocre AI who already caused damages to people, especially minorities. Remember, for Compass, these people have already suffered economical damage, traumas inside jails, even though they are not dangerous. Or even worse, what if we hope that all will be well, that these private companies will develop AIs to the best of their abilities without bias and with perfect accuracy? Well, imagine such a place where we put flawed AI in important places, such as determining life and death, large court cases, credit scores, everything. Human lives will suffer. Biases will be codified, and justice will be no more. Therefore, what should we do? First of all, if you are living in a country in which AI is already prevalently used, ask the local representatives for policies that are important towards AI, such as transparency to the public, stopping the use of private data, and attempting to use future technologies such as explainable AIs. For most of us in Indonesia, we can only wait to do such things, since when AI will inevitably come to our country, even though it's not really used yet. Also, for all of us, we should ask questions towards AI being sold to us, because just because something is AI does not mean it's necessarily better than the other alternatives. However, even if AI has its flaws, we should still hope in AI and invest in it, since it has potential to improve for a better world. Thank you, and God bless.
Well done, Ben. Your emotion is so natural. Your passion for this issue is very, very apparent to us. So I love that. One of my favorite things about Ben. Okay, I'm going to give it to Miss Bethany first.
Okay, nice job, Ben. Thank you. I'm not super educated on this topic, but yeah, this is interesting. So you touched on it a little bit with the examples that you provided in the thesis, but I'm curious as to specifically, because a government or a society has a finite amount of resources financially and people-wise. So where do you think that the bulk of the money going towards AI, to what fields would you want to see it go? Is it primarily medical? Is it primarily justice? And in addition to that, are there fields where you think that we should not be really developing AI? Or are you for the future where your therapist is AI, or just put it everywhere? Where specifically, what are we prioritizing financially?
Thank you for the question. In my personal opinion, we should judge the AIs by two things: its capabilities and if its success, the result of its successes. If it's unrealistic, then we should give up on it. For example, in an extreme example would be coin flipping. We don't need to develop an AI for it since it's random. Machine learning will not help in those departments. So in things where most of the things are randomized, it's not useful to use AIs and machine learning since the AI will not be able to do much there. If you're asking which departments that I would recommend AI to be mostly developed first. I would mainly focus on the medical one. Because in the medical department, the AIs, some of them are used to predict what certain medicines will do to certain people, and it's really important for medicine development. For criminal justice, I argue that we should invest time and money in it, but we should not necessarily immediately use it, and we need to compare it with the old systems. So the short answer is, we should compare it with the old system first to determine whether we should use it or not. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so healthcare, I agree with you, and we still have, we have machines now that perform surgeries on babies in utero, right? That's AI, and you have a lot of machines that, that can perform surgeries, the basic ones at least. So I'm for that. I do want to push back on the justice thing because it relates to your point about the accuracy of the data that we feed, right? And you said something about how currently it seems more likely to profile, like racially profile criminals, and it's only as good as the data that we put into it, and we as humans are sinful. So I'm very skeptical of involving it in justice because as humans, our justice system is already like 60, 70% flawed, let's just say, and if AI is going to be like an even more corrupted version of that, in my vision, I don't see that as being particularly helpful. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that. I feel like if whatever it does will necessarily be worse than what we already do in the justice system, and what we already do in the justice system is not that great. So, yeah.
That's an interesting observation,
Yeah.
but I would argue otherwise. AI is good in predicting risks, which is important in a lot of things such as loan lending, as well as risk of recidivism, because it's possible for it to be better than humankind. Whether it's already better than humankind or not, I don't know. The problem is this: the United States government literally do not record the data publicly again since 2009. So we literally right now as a society could not compare what AI has done in pre-trial with what the regular judges have done. So to dismiss AI in that sense is a bit unfair, since we have not even able to compare the old systems with the AI in an apple-to-apple comparison. Therefore, I argue that the better question would be, if AI is already better, then we should use it, but we have not known it yet, which is why I advocate for transparency and comparisons with the old systems. Regarding its potential, I argue it's highly potential because AI uses data and maths to do it, which is more accurate than the human judgment who sometimes use feelings and also has biases in their own rights.
Yeah, I agree that it has the potential to be less biased in terms of like, if I'm a cop and I'm using a speeding thing to check if a guy is speeding, right? Obviously, I can probably do that better and do it for more cars. But I think in the case of justice, I feel like it's so hard because it's based on the individual, right? And what AI is taking is a complete set of data, right? So 9 times out of 10, a drug addict will relapse, right, at some point in their life. But there's also like the several who do not and who are just clean, right? And I don't know that a machine will ever be able to correctly, I don't know, to me that's such a subjective thing. Like a judge sitting there and looking at a defendant is kind of an important part of the process as well, because an AI will say this guy will 80% likely he's going to commit another murder based on all the data we have. But like there is that 20% that he won't, and we can't. I don't know that how we can leave that up to a machine to decide. You know, there's some kind of a human element, particularly with regard to justice, not in the other fields, that's necessary and missing in AI, at least so far.
I see your observation, and which is why in my full thesis, or the removed part of it, I argue that humans and AI can work together. The AI does in the things where it's better at, such as risk calculating, assessments, calculation. But the humans can exert God-given love and justice and feelings towards the situation and use their judgment to it. So I believe that the combined duo, each doing which part is better in it, will lead to the best outcome. But yeah, AI has some things that it could be better, so it's worth investing in. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so a collaboration, basically,
collaboration
where it concerns, when it concerns justice. Okay, I'd agree. I guess with regard to like a government investing, for example, in AI, if I have the option to like subsidize 100 kids like to go to medical school, right, versus you mentioned like the the high cost of like getting
Yeah.
a machine that can perform surgeries, right? In that situation, don't you think that then like investing in the people would make more sense, especially if a government has limited resources like in Indonesia? Or would, in that case, would you, no, let's get the machine that can do the surgeries?
Thank you for the concern. First and foremost, in Indonesia, it's probably still like tens or hundreds of 20 years to come.
Yeah.
So it's a bit outside
Yeah.
of the scope, and I will not advocate for Indonesia to spend millions of dollars in it.
Yeah.
But for something like the American government or etc., it's more like we should take it in a case-by-case basis. In not in all cases in which AI will be better than humans. Therefore, if AI has shown promises and the tasks are things that AI can do, like repetitive tasks and also predictions, then it is worth investing it compared to the old systems. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So direct, yeah.
Yeah, compare it first before judging it.
Okay, so you have to evaluate
Yeah.
like, what would the potential of like 100
Yeah.
kids in med school versus what this could perform. Okay, so very calculative. Okay, I guess the other question, a different track, but just your thoughts on to what extent as Christians we should be embracing AI. Like, do we want to see AI become therapists and teachers? Is there like a theological element at work here? What are your thoughts? Would you be cool with that? Why?
Thank you for the question. For the Christian views on it, I think it's a bit outside of my scope, since I explicitly say that the moral, sociological, economical impact of AI taking over jobs is outside of my scope. But so far from what I know, teachers are more than just people who educate us. There are more things that can be taught by humans more than just robots. So I believe that AI could be a good teacher assistant to feed the AI the data and also the certain subjects, and the AI might show the weaknesses of the student and certain things that the teacher must focus on the student. But I would personally still argue that humans are different from AIs and still have valuable capabilities that we should keep the teacher as well. So
You don't want like a full mechanization?
No, personally, I don't want it.
Yeah. Okay. And lastly, because you did a lot of research about AI, I'm curious if you know about like the Chinese room, the Turing test, like thought experiment. So I can briefly explain it. It's fun because I want your thoughts on it. But basically, and we did this in college, it's a thought experiment, which is very cool. It involves if like a program that's like taught Chinese, right? It's programmed, it's given the code for Chinese language. And a native Chinese speaker like communicates with it, right? And it's able to answer all the questions in a very credible and believable way, such that the native Chinese speaker thinks he's actually speaking to like another Chinese person via this program. So like the main question that comes from that is that like, does the computer actually like understand Chinese, or is it just simulating understanding? Does it actually know the language, or is it just like, basically like how intelligent is it? What kind of intelligence is it?
Thank you for the question. Intelligence is impossible to define. Many people define it in different ways. Is it in the ability to learn? Is it the ability to replicate? And such like that. In terms of ability to replicate, I'll give it like a 6 out of 10. Sure, it can talk and certain things, but it's not very creative. It only pulls out from the things it has learned in the past. In terms of learning new things, it's actually difficult to code AI to continuously learn from the input it gets. So I'll give it like a 2 or 3 out of 10. So I would argue it's not really that intelligent, but it's still useful.
Yeah, so it doesn't actually know the language.
Yeah, it does not know the language.
Yeah, so that's called the weak AI position. Yeah,
weak AI.
Okay, cool.
Wow. Yeah, thanks, Miss Bethany. Ben, wow, that was really, really well done. I'll have to say that while I'm listening to you present, I'm trying to decide where you're landing, because your thesis feels like you're arguing two things at the same time.
Yeah.
You feel like it seems to me that you're arguing AI is flawed, but we should still continue using it. Is that kind of your general thesis?
I do not argue continue using it, but we should continue investing in it and comparing it with the other systems before using it. So it's still using it, but it should be on a case-by-case basis. So yeah, that's what I'm arguing.
So you're arguing that you're not arguing let's get rid of AI. You're saying, because I'm hearing at the
Yeah.
end, your conclusion is don't stop
Yeah.
investing and working on it,
Yeah.
but it is flawed,
Yeah.
and we have to remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's kind of like I'm trying to figure out who is arguing against that.
Okay.
So maybe there are some people that are arguing artificial intelligence is just terrible. We shouldn't go there. Okay, I see what you're saying. That's who you're speaking to. Okay, so now if let's just say that's me, I think artificial intelligence is sinful. It's wrong to do that. Like you're duplicating the creator in doing this. You know, how would you respond to that? Like, I'm a Christian. I think this is wrong. It's like you're creating some artificial humanity, and that's, you know, violating the principles of, you know, the created order. How would you argue?
Thank you for the question. I argue that AI is just a slightly more advanced tool than normal, and God is fine with us using tools to help us achieve the work. Sure, which is why AI should not interfere in matters that it should not be, like in religion, etc. So what I am thinking is that AI is not contradicting the Bible, since it is merely a tool. Even though the tool is simulating a human mind, hey, we also have simulating human muscles through other types of tools. So I argue AI is just no different than a tool.
That's
Yeah.
a great answer. It's a great answer. I think it's been said that to everyone who uses a hammer, everything is a nail.
Yeah.
Right? And so this idea that it's a tool, but we have to be cautious in how we use the tool. We don't view everything in the world as a nail to be pounded with the hammer, right? So in other words, how we use this tool is what is important,
Yeah.
which goes back to what it means to be human,
Yes.
right? To have free will,
Yes.
right? To have choice. Okay, so there's a philosopher and a historian. He's Jewish. He's actually a homosexual man, and he kind of does not really believe in any religion. I think he said he tried to believe in Judaism at one time, but he couldn't. So he's not coming from a Christian perspective, is why I'm sharing that. His name is Yuval Harari, and he is someone who's contributed a lot to the World Economic Forum. And he just recently delivered a speech that's actually quite shocking. And I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but he says one of the dangers with AI, he says, alongside the inequality, which you mentioned in your thesis, that like developing countries may not can access this because it's expensive, that kind of thing, right? So alongside inequality that AI issues pose, the other major danger we face is the rise of digital dictatorships that will monitor everyone all the time, which is a little bit what your thesis is about, like this lack of transparency, right? Like people hiding information that they're collecting, right? So here's what he says. This danger can be stated in the form of a simple equation, which I think might be the defining equation in the life of the 21st century. B times C times D equals AHH. What does that mean? Biological knowledge multiplied by computer power multiplied by data equals the ability to hack humans. The ability to hack humans. So he says, if you know enough biology and you have enough computing power and data, you can hack my body and my brain and my life. You can understand me better than I can understand myself. You can know my personality type, my political views, my sexual preferences, my mental weaknesses, my deepest fears and hopes. You know more about me than I know about myself. And you can do that not just to me, but to everyone. A system that understands us better than we understand ourselves could predict our feelings and our decisions, could manipulate our feelings and our decisions, and can ultimately make decisions for us. So he's saying there is a real and present danger with artificial intelligence, combined with the ability to collect data, combined with our current knowledge of biological systems.
I know that that is a little bit outside because it's a little bit speaking to the morality issue, but I'm really asking, what should we do to prevent digital dictatorships? Imagine if North Korea has this power to know everything I'm thinking. And when the president gives a message and I'm clapping and smiling, but inside I hate him and he knows it, suddenly I'm in the prison, right? So what do we do to prevent AI from becoming into this dystopic future?
Thank you for the question. First of all, I would like to tackle the part where it's based on the assumption that AI would be able to reach the face in the first place.
Yeah.
We should prevent it. We should limit it, not to meddle with human thoughts and that much. However, is it capable? Yes, because for example, our phone, it collects so much data. It knows where we go, what we have, what we know, etc.
Correct.
So, is it capable? Potentially. Even something like TikTok, for example, that collects the data, it could model the people and what they're thinking, but not entirely. But should we fear it that much? No, North Korea is still a limited country and it's very weak. And also even countries like China, they need more data, more knowledge, etc. So I would argue still a bit far from the future, so it's unrealistic to happen. But regarding the morality, I argue it's evil. If it happens, it's against the Bible and it's a dangerous thing to happen.
I mean, I think it's an easy thing for it to happen because, for instance, my mom is diabetic. She has an iWatch, right? And her iPhone watch is constantly monitoring, right? Her heart, her blood pressure, all this data, even her blood sugar, without her having to prick herself. That's crazy to me. I don't even know how it does it, right? That's artificial intelligence, and it's incredibly life-saving. It's actually saved her life several times. So I like that aspect of it. But where is that data going? Who's keeping it? How do I know what they're going to do with it?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Which is why this is an issue in AIs and also even non-AIs, for example, collecting data and then people manually deciding it. But AI is the next step. It automates it. So the data collected is, for example, for apps created by countries which we do not really like to have the data stored in, it's dangerous since they could access the data, which is why we should be careful of the AI we choose to use.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think this politician or philosopher and historian, he was arguing that it's important for the global community. This is by speaking to the World Economic Forum, and he's arguing it's important for us to begin regulating now, so that we're preventing this digital dictatorship and the ability one day for humans to be hacked. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. So relating to that question, I'm going to ask Justin to come ask his question, which you kind of already answered, but I want to hear more about what you think about this topic.
All right. So Elon Musk stated that AI is like more dangerous than ever in the incoming future. How would you respond to that from the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX?
Thank you for the question. I'm not sure if Elon is referring to the dangers of AI dictatorship or AI controlling everything, or about the taking over jobs. But I'm assuming it's the first one, I think. Yeah, because he creates self-driving cars. So for that risk, I think about it, it's risky, but it's unlikely to happen since it requires a lot of manpower, a lot of will, and a lot of digitalization and everything combined with no checks and balances and no whistleblowers for it to happen. So is it a real risk? Probably. AI is capable of basically creating human profiles and things like that. Is it a huge risk? It's not that likely, so I'm not arguing that we should ban AI.
I want to push back on that because I disagree completely. So if you just think about China with the COVID pandemic, did they open up all their data to the rest of the world?
No.
No.
Yeah.
We don't know even the origins of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rumor that maybe it originated in China from a lab and not from the wet market, right? And they won't open up their data. They're controlling very tightly what gets communicated to the rest of the world.
Yes.
So if they do that with this virus, how can I trust other countries to be transparent with their collection of data in AI? That's scary.
Thank you for the concern, but this is exactly why we should choose the AI that we develop in and we use personally. So we should not put a blanket on the entirety of AI and we're gonna use every one of them and use none of them. So we should choose the AIs to prevent such things from happening.
Okay, so then TikTok
Yeah.
has been in America, has been
Yes.
kind of a hot topic, right?
Yeah.
And in some states, they've actually banned it. They're like, no more TikTok because the Chinese government's collecting data on us. I mean, how do we know what to believe and what not to believe, right? Because
Yeah.
predictive AI,
Yeah.
right? It only shows me what I want to see, what I keep clicking on. It keeps showing me those other articles so I can go down a really crazy conspiracy theory bananas trail.
and they could create like your profile and know you exactly. Like, for example, knowing your phone alone is not enough. Knowing
Right.
resolution, knowing certain things,
Right.
location, more and more,
Yeah.
they can create your profile. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a risk that
Yeah.
is real.
So you're saying we need to really educate on this risk. We need to develop policy around
We
this.
should regulate it, demand transparency in algorithms and more and more.
Got it.
Things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so a question for me is you say we should demand transparency, and you said that we can't do apple to apple comparisons because AI companies haven't released the data, the statistics. Why?
It's a straight. Thank you for the question because the companies are literally allowed to keep it since I forgot the name, but it's something about ownership of some ownership of
Like a secret recipe.
Yeah, it's like a secret recipe that they do not reveal to the public. But for Compass, thankfully, it's sort of released the percentages. However, we cannot compare it since this time the problem is in the government who do not keep the old systems data records and do not publish it. So yeah, it's a problem.
So in some cases there are no records,
Yeah.
and in some cases they aren't releasing
Yeah,
what
are
they
releasing.
have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I have one more question? I'm going to jump back to something you mentioned that I'm sure everyone here is familiar with, which is ChatGPT.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Or artificial intelligence apps.
Which, by the way, your rhetoric teacher can catch.
yeah,
She
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
So the question is, so it's a useful tool.
Yeah.
And I don't think we want to say don't use it because there's a lot of benefit from saying, give me an example of an essay so that I can see and model from. But how do I use AI with integrity? And as a society, how do we encourage people to not abuse AI and begin to say, this is my work versus this is the ChatGPT app?
Your friends actually have the same question.
Thank you for the question. Regarding the human nature of piggybacking on someone else's work and not doing work, I cannot change it. It's like just human nature. But for people who want to actually become better people from learning from these AIs could, for example, in sentences there's like the noun, verb, etc. We could ask the ChatGPT to which one is the noun, which one is the verb. We could learn grammar from it. So AI is like a knife or a tool. We could use it for the better and we could use it for the worse. But regarding encouraging, I guess we should. Certain teachers are better at catching ChatGPT answers because, for example, Ms. Ella said that she knows how every student actually wrote. So if
Right.
someone wrote using ChatGPT, then she will find it out.
Right.
So I would encourage teachers to tell the students to write manually
Yep.
and then compare it with what
Yeah.
they think.
Yeah, so actually in America right now, many schools,
Yeah.
and maybe even around the world, there are many schools that are reverting away from utilizing technology during the school day. They're taking away iPads, digital devices, everything, because they're saying, we want to see you as people learning to think. And so this is my last question. You know, we've been using AI for a while. So if you think about a pilot in an airplane,
Yeah.
I think they use AI frequently. because they have autopilot.
Yes.
Right? They're driving the plane, basic flying the plane, because you don't drive a plane, you fly the plane on autopilot. And I'm wondering, has anyone done any research or is anybody looking at, like what you talked about, are we looking at, we've added AI into this system, maybe automated driving cars or airline industry. Do we see a greater do we see increase or a decrease of airline accidents? And is it because of AI or because we have AI or because we don't have AI? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, in other words, is pilot error increased now? Is what I'm really trying to ask. Is pilot error increased right now with AI or not? Those kinds of things. Are people doing those kind of studies, or are you aware of it?
Thank you for the question. I'm not aware of the pilots. And
Right, not
airlines.
specific
Yeah,
that,
not
but
specific.
in general.
But sometimes the government sort of, also the airliners themselves realize that they need to release the data to make it seem as convincing as possible to the public. So sometimes they do it, but not always. For example, for Tesla self-driving cars, they publish the data, not the data entirely, but the overall generic statistic that it's safer than regular cars. So sometimes, if it's already better than the regular kinds, these companies will release it to the public for their own good, but
Right.
not all of them do it. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so if Tesla makes a particular, like the Model X, and it's not as safe, they're not going to release those statistics. Ah, bahaya lah.
But they released it, so
But they did.
yeah, it's safer.
Even if it was less safe than a human,
No,
did they release it or no?
It's safer than humans, which is why they released it.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. That's,
Yeah.
the danger. All right,
Yeah.
y'all give another hand for Ben.